A man wearing a long robe leans over a small flame. He carefully sets a metal pot atop it and peers intently inside. The two ingredients melt and merge, becoming something else. Is he a wizard? Is it magic? Welcome to Truly Terrified, Paranormal versus Physics, where we talk about some really weird stuff, and Joe the scientist explains how it's not possible, or maybe it is. I'm Lynn, and
I'm Joe.
Please subscribe right now. We need you to help us grow. This is our 65th episode and the beginning of our second year.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It's been, wow.
Yeah, it's been actually
That's
over
crazy.
a year. If you want to be part of the conversation, you can contact us. Our contact information is in the show notes or description, depending upon what platform you're on. Now, on to the magic of alchemy. In AD 292, the Roman Emperor, I'm going to mangle it, Diocletian,
It actually sounds pretty close, I think.
he ordered that all books on alchemy should be burned during a revolt in Alexandria. I think Alexandria was in Egypt. Does that sound right?
Yeah, I think that's right. It's in the Nile Delta, I think.
Yeah, I think so. Few original documents, those Egyptian documents on alchemy, have survived, but two notable ones have: the Stockholm Papyrus and the Leiden Papyrus X. They date from AD 250 to 300, and they contain the recipes for dyeing, making artificial gemstones, cleaning and fabricating pearls, and manufacturing imitation gold and silver. These documents lack the mystical philosophical elements of alchemy that most people ascribe to today. So why did he burn those books? Why do you think?
Okay, okay, just for the short answer for that, I think he burned the books because alchemy is very highly tied up with secret organizations. Secret as being one of their main features. And so what went along with alchemy, I don't think it was compatible with an empire.
One of the things, it was a basic contradiction of a belief that they had. So an important example of alchemy's roots in Greek philosophy originated by, again, gonna mangle it, Empedocles, don't know, and was developed by Aristotle, was that all things in the universe are formed from only four elements: earth, air, water, and fire. According to Aristotle, each element had a sphere to which it belonged and to which it would return if left undisturbed. The four elements of the Greek were mostly qualitative aspects of matter, not quantitative, as our modern elements are. So I found this quote: "True alchemy never regarded earth, air, water, and fire as corporeal or chemical substances in the present-day sense of the word. The four elements are simply the primary and most general qualities by means of which the amorphous and purely quantitative substance of all bodies first reveals itself in differentiated form." So it was this dichotomy, or not even dichotomy, this disagreement in how things worked, what made up matter, that
was the canonical reason.
Later, alchemists extensively developed the mystical aspects of this concept. So then they really went into some, pushed it a little further. So why did they go into the mystical aspects of it? Because it's pretty clear to me it's science.
So alchemy is really interesting because it was clearly, there was a highly practical component to it. Mm-hmm. So practical that it essentially evolved into modern chemistry. And potentially, some people think modern science in general. Way back pre-science era, people had tied lots of beliefs up with lots of things that were just not appropriate. So like gods, for instance. The gods like minutely controlling materials or guiding things. And even people now who believe in gods would say that's just not how it is. We can look and see how things are behaving. It's just not how it works. But you can see a thought process where they were trying to combine concepts, which is actually great. That's why they were developing new methods and new understandings. They were trying to combine concepts. And so you see a lot of like failed attempts at that. In fact, there's no like alchemy period. There's what looks to be the same sort of thing. There's like a continuation of similar methods and similar beliefs and whatever. But there are some general trends that kind of define alchemy and have defined alchemy for literally since probably prehistory. In particular, there was mysticism essentially the whole time. So way back, there was, and this is the probably prehistory part, the idea that the knowledge they have about the elements or materials, whatever, came from Hermes, or it's not Hermes, it's Hermes Trismegistus, which is a combination of gods, Hermes and Thoth. So Hermes is Greek, Thoth is Egyptian. But the point really isn't that they got this knowledge from a higher power or whatever. It was that they had these secret cults, essentially. They had secret societies. So that's one of the elements that really defines alchemy, is they were doing these practices not necessarily explicitly in secret, but it was an exclusive club.
Okay, so what I read was that when they did something, probably meteorological, is that how you would say that?
Meteorological?
Having to do with metals?
Oh, metallurgical?
Metallurgical. Okay, so when they did those things, and because they had these secret societies or bands or, organizations, they didn't want to share, or maybe they didn't understand why it happened. And so they expressed it in terms of magic or divine intervention or something mystical.
Yeah, so you can see that's the concept combination kind of tendency. They want to have a higher understanding. They're attributing the understanding to various things, but they want to unify what they do understand. And they understand things that aren't true, almost certainly, but that they will eventually render it down to a more precise understanding. Like, it eventually evolves into chemistry.
Right.
That's not the ultimate conclusion. The ultimate conclusion is in the future, if there even is one. But it's this same process of, here's something and here's something. They seem to go together, but they don't go together well. So we got to keep trying to find how they go together. And eventually you do have an higher understanding. It's like when you shoot protons at gold foil and you see they reflect off at weird angles. Why is that? And you eventually develop a model. Well, they're hitting something. They're hitting discrete units of things. Most of the time, so they just go right through. So the things are really small that they're hitting. And you can see this process. In the past, it was what they were working with was gods and like
unseen powers. And,
exactly. But I really have to emphasize that it was the mystique is what brought people in. And the mystique came from the secret societies associated with the practice. And they weren't necessarily completely secret, but rather esoteric.
Or maybe
meanings.
Exclusive.
Well, so esotericism is kind of the general trend. Even now, alchemy is it's not a thing, really. But esotericism is. And that is literally the esotericism, all of it, alchemy and the modern Western esotericism and ancient esotericism, that's what joined it all together. And esotericism is essentially the the study or belief in esoteric things, but really it's...
So you can't say esotericism.
Well, it's really the study or belief in things that give you exclusive knowledge. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. So like, for instance, the alchemists, there's a small number of them, and what they're studying gives them power.
Right.
And it's mysticism is related. Mysticism is study of mystical things, things with mystique. But it's not exactly that. That's what's drawing people into alchemy. It's really that they're doing something that gives them a practical advantage. Mm-hmm. Like, for instance, one of the things is the alchemist's stone or whatever.
That sounds
alchemist's gem or whatever it's called, which it is a panacea, the most ultimate panacea. It cures all diseases and lets you live forever. Seeking that there's a real practical reason for seeking that, and, well, it lets you live forever. It gives you a heavy advantage. So you had this practical element. You had these groups of people getting together and studying this thing that gives them exclusive knowledge. So as far as I can see, it's a trend everywhere where people want to do this. Probably even pre-civilization. You know, you have tribes where they had these like clubs, and of only a few people, but still, those people had some exclusive knowledge. I mean, picture a bunch of like Native Americans. You can imagine like small exclusive groups getting together. They have an advantage somehow, and you can see it even now, even in polite society, typical society,
modern society,
with like the Freemasons. You can see it literally. Almost every little town has one.
Well, because those early alchemists would explain to people who observed them that they were utilizing magic or some kind of mysticism. Because of that, and all the eons that have passed since then, we have 3 definitions of the word alchemy. The first is the one that we're talking about: a medieval chemical science and speculative philosophy aiming to achieve the transmutation of the base metals into gold, the discovery of a universal cure for disease, and the discovery of a means of indefinitely prolonging life. Okay, we can agree on that. That's what we're talking about. But it's also a power or process that changes or transforms something in a mysterious or impressive way, which is the way I used it when I started a blog back in 1995 called Alchemy, and it was nothing magical or mystical. It was recipes and crafts and things, because you were taking, disparate objects or ingredients and creating something else. And then the third one, which is a direct result of that original, these guys ascribing what they were doing to some kind of greater power, an inexplicable or mysterious transmuting. And I think that what's happened is that one right there is the one that everyone thinks of when they think of alchemy.
Yeah. So you can see across time, people were doing something very practical that was pragmatic. They were doing it for real reasons, be it power or the effect it gave or whatever.
Curiosity, whatever.
But it's taking place over a long period of time. A lot is happening. People are trying to understand processes that they don't understand. And so there is a lot that goes into that people believed, and that goes into the culture behind alchemy. So like Hermeticism, that's the belief in Hermes Trismegistus or whatever, and how that's related to alchemy. You had way back when in the Middle East, it was written down certain religious beliefs that were pretty fringe, I think. because they came from secret societies, or what amounted to secret societies, exclusive clubs, and that persisted through these esoteric communities. But that wasn't what they were doing. That may have guided what they were doing. That may have been part of the content of their understanding, what they thought was their understanding. But they were really actually making things and doing things,
Right.
So no matter what, you had the real practice of doing alchemy. So that's the first sense. But then that third sense of
the inexplicable or mysterious transmuting.
So there you have the mysticism, the esotericism that is drawing people into it. Even now,
right?
There's a reason why alchemy is still talked about.
Right. So if you look up the word online, you'll find a whole bunch of websites that are almost exclusively paranormal or supernatural in subject matter. People who practice witchcraft or other supernatural arts often refer to what they're doing as alchemy. So it's not incorrect. It's just that they took that aspect of it, or not that they even took it, because they probably don't even recognize where it came from. That aspect of it is the one that has persisted, because the original purpose that those people were at, what they actually were doing, has evolved into modern science.
Yeah. So I really think of it like what people are doing now with the spiritual successor of alchemy, like witches and whatever. That's alchemy, because it's all just the same process that's been going on.
Right.
People have interpreted things. There's been loose associations with, like if there ever was a continuous single term for all of it, it's not like there was like the school of alchemy, and it was since 2000 BC or whatever, and it's more like people over here were mixing some metals. They're alchemists. People over here were talking about Hermes and mixing concepts or something. They're alchemists.
Right.
And they all believed different things. They were all in different locations. There were some common threads, like Hermeticism and esotericism, the trend of esotericism, which again, pretty sure it's just the natural evolution of having secret clubs doing pragmatic things. And so, but they're all blended up together. They're very difficult to piece apart. But so I should say, it all kind of adds to this gestalt of alchemy, which is the mystique behind it. And,
I'm not going to go into whether or not I believe people who are practicing what they call alchemy in our modern society, whether or not they're actually doing anything or it's just pretend, because that's a whole other episode about, and maybe we should do a part 2 on alchemy and talk about
There's
what people do.
There's a whole lot into alchemy.
What people do with modern people, what they're doing that is supernatural or mystical or whatever. The original meaning of alchemy, that's pretty much, we can agree that that's why, and that was very interesting about secret societies. I didn't find that in my research, that they kind of had their own enclave of exclusivity.
Yeah, so they won't, you won't see it maybe explicitly, but you see it, if you read between the lines, you see it. Like, for instance, in ancient Rome, didn't like alchemists because the alchemists had their own secret club. They were doing things and having weird beliefs, and it's a natural consequence of their practice.
Right. Because they were identifying that some of those, the beliefs of their society that they lived in, were not true.
Yeah. So it would be like, imagine if instead of the analog of chemists, it was analog of something else, like carpenters. I think we had that, but maybe and masons. Yeah, we had that. How about engineers? Probably had that too. But they're getting together and they're discussing how to build houses. But because they don't really understand, like, the pressures involved in shear forces.
And yet they figured out enough to be successful at it.
Yeah, so they figured out enough, and they're combining it with beliefs, and they want to get to the bottom of it. And
so imagine somebody says, how are you doing that?
Yeah, and so they're saying, like, weird shit.
Yeah,
like,
the gods came
it's not just the gods. It's like this one particular god and it's not just that god. It's like this god combined with another god from a different area. And it was like this weird belief that no one else knows about.
Yeah.
That is the reason they know it.
And because the people listening to this explanation don't have any access to what they're talking about, it gives them more power or social standing because they are different.
Yeah, and they have an actual real result. They build better buildings. We're talking about
carpenters.
Otherwise, they make substances, Like they can impress people. They can make things that fuse things. They can make things that shoot sparks or whatever.
I think that they were doing electroplating back then. Is that true?
What amounts to electroplating?
Yeah.
Like putting metals in different substances. And
so that they were able to coat items with a thin layer of gold, say.
Yeah, so like faking gold, that would be very practically useful.
And it would make them very popular.
Yeah, exactly. But also very hated. And
true.
So you can see how it is this natural progression where there's only a few of them, obviously. There's only going to be a few of them obsessive enough to figure it all out. And so they're going to be grouped together. They'll have weird beliefs because they're trying to figure new things out. They have a very practical use for these things. So that makes them both revered and hated. And
they were probably very intense in what they were doing because they were having to figure out something with no roadmap.
Yeah. So you can see, no matter what it was, again, if it was chemistry, the analog of chemistry, analog of engineering, or whatever, there's going to be this natural evolution to esoteric secret societies with weird beliefs who keep to themselves, essentially, but who have immense mystical powers.
Or knowledge.
And so you kind of see maybe the same thing with Freemasons. Like Freemasonry, they actually do have political power.
Yeah, they do.
And always have.
And they have secret things they do.
It just so happened that this process was primarily associated with alchemy. Probably because chemicals, very easily available, essentially. It's not like with masonry and with engineering and whatever. You need other people to go, like, set the stone. If you have a glass vial filled with some, like, sloshy metal, you can do a lot with that.
Yeah.
Just by yourself. So anyway, I think that fundamentally, alchemy and alchemists were, it was the esoteric component that really made alchemy. So that means people getting together and doing alchemy, essentially in secret in private clubs. Now, you could talk a lot about the very particular beliefs of alchemists, and there were a lot of different ones over time. There were some general trends. Again, Hermeticism. Hermeticism, belief in whatever, Hermes, chimera with Thoth or whatever. Which was really interesting. Like, for instance, you've heard this surely before, as above, so below.
Yeah.
That comes from Hermeticism. Explanations of it are interpretations and probably mistranslations.
The interpretations I've heard is that, what goes on in heaven can go on earth.
So probably all of the interpretations that we think of that are mistranslations, misinterpretations of the original utterance.
Misascribed meaning.
But in terms of alchemy, I think it's kind of recognized as there's an equivalence between concepts. So Greeks, if I remember right, were idealists. Most of Greek culture was idealist. They believed in that the mind was separate from the physical world.
Mm-hmm. So modern day alchemy is a natural offshoot of early alchemy in that they retained the mystical qualities or the esoteric qualities of those early alchemists. We will not discuss whether or not the modern alchemists have any true powers. Just like those early alchemists, it's been discovered that they were in fact doing science. Correct?
Alchemists throughout history were essentially doing a sort of science in trying to develop new things, seeing what worked and what didn't work, and that eventually evolved into, this is debatable, but evolved into chemistry and the rest of science. But I really think it was the esoteric qualities of the art that drew them all together.
Our contact information is in the show notes. You can email us, text us, or even call and leave a 3-minute voicemail. And as always, if you have a story you want to tell, send it to us. Remember, share, subscribe, and leave a review wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks for listening, and never be so terrified you can't run
towards the alchemist stone.